On the evening before Thanksgiving in 2022, shortly before 11:30 p.m., Jasmine Pace left her mother's home in Chattanooga, Tennessee. She drove away in her white Chevy Equinox. The following day, Katrina Pace received a message from her daughter's phone. It said that Jasmine planned to spend the rest of the week at her friend Emma's house. Jasmine had recently lost her grandmother to cancer, so when she decided not to attend the family Thanksgiving gathering, it didn't immediately raise any alarms. From time to time, she had disappeared for short periods while trying to cope with her grief. But everything changed after a new post appeared on Jasmine's Facebook page. "Enjoying Thanksgiving with my baby," it read. At first, Katrina was surprised by the revealing outfit her daughter was wearing. It was completely out of character for Jasmine to post such provocative photos on social media. But it was another detail in the picture that sent Jasmine's father, Travis Pace, into a panic. Jasmine's many tattoos were like a timeline of her life, with each one added months apart. In this photo, the large tattoos on her right shoulder and upper arm were missing. It was obvious. The post was not what it claimed to be. Katrina contacted Jasmine's friend Emma and confirmed what she had already begun to suspect. Jasmine was not at her house, despite what the message had claimed. Several other friends and relatives had also received messages that appeared to come from Jasmine, but none of them had actually spoken with her. Every message carried the same idea: the 22-year-old wanted to be left alone. The family immediately began searching for her. Jasmine's Chevy SUV was equipped with a GPS feature called My Chevy. Using the My Chevy app, her mother was able to locate the vehicle. It was found parked outside the Signal View condos on Mountain Creek Road in Chattanooga. By the time the vehicle was located, it was already 8:30 p.m. on November 26th. 4 days had passed since Jasmine was last seen leaving her mother's house late on the night of November 22nd. As far as the family knew, Jasmine didn't know anyone at Signal View condos where her Equinox had been found. When they examined the vehicle, they noticed that the driver's seat had been pushed far back. It appeared that the last person behind the wheel had been much taller than Jasmine, who stood only 5 feet 2 inches tall. The family then called 911 to report her missing. Chattanooga police arrived at the scene and took the report, carefully documenting everything the family had learned. Friends, let me interrupt for just a minute. I'm really curious where my audience is watching from, so I'd love for you to tell me what city you're watching this video from and what time it is there right now. Thanks so much for watching. Leave it in the comments, and I'll continue.
We want her home and we want her safe.
Bailey Putman is doing anything she can to try to bring her childhood friend home. Jasmine Pace hasn't been seen since November 22nd. Chattanooga police are investigating the case as a missing person.
Her mom has not an ounce of sleep. I don't think she is 8.
Jasmine was last seen here on surveillance video leaving her mom's house. They believe she was trying to leave town to grieve a recent death in the family, but they knew something went wrong when she didn't show up to Thanksgiving dinner.
And that is so very unlike her. There's not a day that they don't hear from Jasmine, let alone an hour.
Katrina also contacted the family's cell phone carrier. Jasmine was on the family phone plan, which gave her mother access to her daughter's phone records. She discovered that no calls had been made from Jasmine's phone for several days. With the call log in front of her, the desperate mother began calling every number on the list. She did it while the police officers were there with her. Among all the numbers, one stood out. Jasmine had spent more than an hour talking to it on the evening of November 22nd. When Katrina called that number, a young man answered. Jasmine had met him on the dating app Bumble. His name was Jason Chen, a computer science student at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. They'd been dating for several months, although their relationship wasn't yet serious enough for him to meet her parents. Neither Katrina nor Travis had ever met Jason before. The college student was told that Jasmine was missing. Had he heard from her? No, not for several days, he replied. And the last time we talked, it was only for a few minutes. Katrina knew that was an outright lie.
He just lied, said that he hadn't talked to her. He talked to her for a few minutes Monday when she was with me at the bank. He talked to her for 71 minutes. He would remember that. He talked to her for over an hour, and he just lied.
Jason's indifference was yet another alarming sign. Katrina begged the officers to investigate more thoroughly, but they did almost nothing. Jasmine was an adult, and at that point there were no obvious signs of a violent crime. The officers simply took the missing person report, exchanged contact information with the family, and left the devastated parents to deal with the situation on their own. Katrina and Travis decided to take matters into their own hands. They began knocking on every door in the apartment complex. No one had seen Jasmine. One of the security guards agreed to show them the surveillance footage, which captured the white Chevy entering the property. Using the timestamps from the My Chevy app, they found the relevant recording. On November 23rd, just after 8:30 p.m., the SUV pulled into the parking lot and headed toward the area where it would later be found. It was impossible to make out the driver. By then, Katrina had noticed another message that had come from Jasmine's phone during the early morning hours of November 23rd. It contained no text, only a location pin showing where her phone was at that moment. The message had been received at 2:18 a.m. Jasmine had never sent her anything like that before, especially in the middle of the night. The next day, after the police dismissed their concerns at the condo complex, the family immediately drove to the coordinates from the message. The location was an apartment at 110 Tremont Street. Desperate once again, Jasmine's parents started knocking on every door. Every apartment except number 210 was either answered or checked another way. Neighbors told them that around 2:15 a.m. on November 23rd, they had heard a loud noise coming from apartment number 210. Accounts of what happened next differ, but one way or another, Katrina and Travis ended up inside apartment number 210. Near the entrance was a notebook with the resident's name written inside, Jason Chen. It was a small, open-concept apartment. The kitchen was only a few steps from the couch, a narrow hallway led to the single bedroom, and there was one bathroom along with a washer and dryer hidden inside a closet. Nearly the entire apartment was visible as soon as you walked through the front door. A small travel bag sat on the kitchen counter. It belonged to Jasmine. Next to it were various cleaning supplies. Inside a desk drawer, Travis found his daughter's driver's license and her bank cards. He took them out and left them in plain sight. The Chattanooga police were called once again. Officers spoke with Katrina, interviewed the neighbors, and left again. Convinced that the police were not going to help, Katrina returned to the apartment several more times over the next few hours. She took notebooks, electronic devices, several cell phones, a camera, and an iPad, anything that might help reveal her daughter's whereabouts. The parents also searched the dumpsters outside the building. It wasn't until around midnight that Chattanooga police returned to 110 Tremont Street with a search warrant and finally began an official investigation. During their initial search, investigators noticed stains resembling blood on the hardwood floor in the living room. Blood also appeared to have seeped into the seams of the bathroom floor. In the bedroom, stains were found on the carpet, while the bathroom door and wall displayed spatter patterns consistent with blood. The large quantity of cleaning products immediately raised serious suspicion. The trash bags had been emptied. After checking the dumpsters, officers found a pair of white sneakers and a pair of blue pants. All of the items were collected as evidence. Inside the apartment, investigators also found shards of broken glass in the living room. The signs of a violent attack were becoming impossible to ignore. In the bedroom, it was obvious that the furniture had been moved. Marks in the carpet showed that certain pieces of furniture had remained in one place for a long time before being shifted to another part of the room. Investigators believed this had been done to conceal a large stain they discovered beneath the bed. A kitchen knife was lying on top of the bed. Experts found what appeared to be bloodstains in nearly every room of the apartment. A forensic team was called in. They treated the apartment with Blue Star, a chemical reagent that can reveal blood even after it has been thoroughly cleaned or when it is invisible to the naked eye. The hallway practically lit up. At that point, the disappearance of Jasmine Pace was officially reclassified as a homicide investigation. Detectives collected surveillance footage from the apartment building and surrounding areas. Step by step, they reconstructed Jason Chen's movements, hoping to determine what had happened to Jasmine Pace and where she could be found. Investigators were confident that Jasmine had arrived at 110 Tremont Street before midnight on November 22nd. Cameras captured her Chevy Equinox turning into the parking lot outside the building. The vehicle was also caught on camera when it left the property. Investigators determined that at approximately 8:30 p.m. the following day, a person wearing a light-colored hoodie drove Jasmine's Chevy to Signal View condos. The driver left the vehicle there, then got into a dark Prius, believed to be operating as a rideshare vehicle, and returned to Jason's apartment. A Ring camera installed outside an apartment near the parking lot exit captured Jason Chen several times on November 23rd. Most notably, he was seen at 8:27 p.m., just 3 minutes before the person in the light-colored hoodie drove Jasmine's SUV to Signal View condos and abandoned it there. Investigators also became interested in several other trips Jason made over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. The first was a morning trip to Walmart where he went alone. Among other things, he purchased bandages, hydrogen peroxide, and a variety of cleaning supplies. At the self-checkout, Jason rang up several more expensive items as asparagus. Walmart surveillance cameras clearly captured his white sneakers. Investigators believe this was the same pair later found discarded near the dumpsters. That same evening, Jason stopped at Walgreens, where he bought a package of paper towels. Investigators concluded that sometime between his morning trip to Walmart and the time he left the apartment, where blood and signs of a hurried cleanup had already been discovered, Jason must have removed Jasmine from the apartment. They believed he also threw away some of his clothing in an attempt to hide evidence of the crime. As detectives tracked the computer science student's movements through countless surveillance cameras across Chattanooga, one very noticeable detail helped them: his white hoodie. The bright-colored clothing stood out clearly, even in dark or low-quality security footage. At nearly 6 p.m. on November 23rd, the person wearing that same white hoodie left the building again. This time, he struggled to drag a large suitcase from the front entrance to the parking lot. Minutes later, cameras captured Jason's black Toyota Camry leaving the property. On November 29th, 1 week after Jasmine was last seen alive, Jason Chen was found at his parents' home in Nolanville. When officers arrested him, they noticed cuts on his right hand and both feet injuries consistent with a violent struggle.
He's gonna pat you down. He's gonna place in handcuffs. Not place you in arrest. It's just policy to go to the back of the horse. So you gotta put handcuffs.
Okay. So you said it was a search warrant for me?
Correct. Yeah. It's for search warrant for your person. So we're Nolanville Police Department. We're gonna be detaining you in the flashing the search warrant. We're assisting Chen.
Okay. And is there any calls or anything?
Yeah. They're gonna explain it. That's it. Yeah. We're gonna let them do that. But I don't want to speak for them. Yeah, we don't want to let you misinform you of anything. So they'll tell you all that when we get down there. So just take it with them. They're the lead on this. We'll let them explain it because we don't want to pile on information. We'll let them one time it all down. Okay. All right. So if you will, just face away from me.
A search warrant was obtained for Jason's parents' house. In the room he had been using, investigators recovered a black backpack and several handwritten notes. Some of them appeared to be Jason's attempt to prepare his version of events in advance. In one note, he claimed the last time he had seen Jasmine was on November 19th, even though they had actually been together on November 22nd. He also wrote that Jasmine supposedly had a habit of running away from home and that she had a restraining order against a former boyfriend. It appeared that Jason was preparing himself for the inevitable police interview. In his notes, he also claimed that Jasmine had been homeless and that, in his opinion, her mother struggled with alcoholism. Together, these claims painted a picture of an unpredictable young woman who could have disappeared voluntarily. Inside the backpack, detectives found a SIM card hidden inside an eyeglasses case. It belonged to Jasmine's phone. Investigators also seized Jason's cell phone and extracted the data stored on it. On Jason's phone, they found a photograph of Jasmine taken in the bathroom of his apartment on the night she disappeared. They also discovered several screenshots of text messages he had received from Jasmine. But the actual messages themselves had already been deleted from the conversation. On the morning after the murder was believed to have taken place, Jason sent Jasmine a photo with the message, "Slept like a baby." Later that same day, he sent her another text, "Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight?" Metadata from the photo revealed that it had actually been taken 2 years earlier and originated from Jasmine's phone. Data from Jasmine's phone also showed that her device traveled with Jason to Walmart that morning, even though surveillance footage showed him arriving there and shopping alone. Ultimately, the phone's location data helped investigators trace Jason's route after he loaded the large suitcase into his Toyota Camry. He drove to Suck Creek Road, a roadway that runs along the river. On Thursday, December 1st, while searching the shoreline, investigators spotted the very object they had feared they would find. It was Jason Chen's large suitcase. Inside the suitcase, they found the body of 98-pound Jasmine Pace. It had been wrapped in 3 trash bags. Her hands and feet were restrained with 2 pairs of handcuffs. Her right wrist was cuffed to her right ankle, and her left ankle was cuffed to her right elbow. These were not standard police handcuffs, but a lighter-duty model. The chain on one pair had been broken. The autopsy determined that Jasmine had suffered at least 60 stab wounds. Most of the injuries were concentrated in one area of her body, primarily the upper left side. From her chest, forensic experts recovered a fragment of a knife blade. Jasmine was a devoted aunt to her 2 nieces and the godmother of a little boy named Juan. According to her older sister, Gabby, Jasmine's greatest dream was to become a mother. She often talked about the kind of mom she hoped to be for her future children. She also loved animals and adored her 4 cats. To everyone who knew her, the cheerful, kind 22-year-old will always be remembered simply as Jazzy. She fiercely protected her family and friends. Jasmine is remembered as someone who was always there for people in need, freely sharing her love, support, and compassion.
There's a moment when you're with her, you realized how clever, how smart, how brilliant she was.
Knowing how many lives that she touched and them spreading the word on my sister, I think it also touched other people's hearts that have probably gone through a situation like this.
I've known her my entire life, and I've never seen her burn a bridge or have ends with someone badly.
She just always made it a point to know, for you to know that she was thinking of you and that she loved you. She was fierce over her family. She was fierce over her friends.
In December of 2022, a judge set Jason Chen's bond at $5 million. When the horrifying details of the murder became public, many people were outraged that Jason had been granted the possibility of bond at all. By that point, investigators had reconstructed the complete timeline of events. The evidence showed that after the murder, Jason used Jasmine's phone and SIM card to gain access to her bank accounts and social media profiles, posting false messages to make it appear that she was still alive. To a woman he had met on Tinder, Jason wrote, "I guess we're dating now." At that very moment, Jasmine's body was believed to still be lying in his bedroom. Later that same evening, he made plans to play Call of Duty online with friends. Before joining them, Jason explained that he just needed to finish cleaning his apartment. It was difficult to imagine what kind of defense strategy his attorneys could present at trial. The trial began in January of 2025, but on the very first day of testimony, the case took an unexpected turn. Jason's defense attorney, Josh Wise, did not try to convince the jury that his client was innocent. Instead, in his opening statement, he said plainly, "Jason Chen killed Jasmine Pace, but he did not do it with premeditation. This is a case of intentional homicide without the aggravating factor of premeditation." Although prosecutors were not seeking the death penalty, a conviction for first-degree premeditated murder would have meant life in prison without the possibility of parole. Because of that, the defense's best strategy was to persuade the court that Jason's actions should be classified as a less serious offense.
This is the suitcase in which Jason Chen stuffed the 98-pound body of Jasmine Pace. That's where I'm going to begin this story. Except, I want you to remember that as you hear evidence in the next week, that this is not a story like the one that you read in a novel where you have to imagine the appearances of characters. The evidence that you will hear in this case is very real. The evidence will not require that you use your imagination. Jasmine Pace was very real. And Jason Chen really killed her.
To have the crime classified as intentional homicide without premeditation, the defense had to convince the jury that Jason killed Jasmine while in a state of intense emotional disturbance. They argued that he acted under the influence of a sudden emotional reaction triggered by Jasmine's behavior rather than carrying out a planned murder. According to the defense, the couple had been drinking wine together in Jason's apartment that night. Late in the evening, Jasmine went into the kitchen to get another bottle. That was when she supposedly heard the distinctive notification sounds from the Tinder dating app repeatedly coming from her boyfriend's phone. The defense claimed that this enraged Jasmine, leading to a heated argument between them. They then argued that Jasmine was the first to attack Jason, using a broken wine glass. Earlier, while opening the previous bottle of wine, Jason had used a kitchen knife to cut away the protective foil before leaving the knife on the nightstand in the bedroom. According to the defense, that was the knife he instinctively reached for when Jasmine allegedly attacked him. Attorney Josh Wise also attempted to explain the handcuffs found on Jasmine's body. According to him, after inflicting the fatal wound, Jason panicked and put the handcuffs on her only so her body could fit inside the trash bags and the large suitcase. During the trial, prosecutors carefully reconstructed the timeline of the murder and the subsequent attempt to cover it up. Their case was supported by extensive surveillance footage, data from both Jason's and Jasmine's cell phones, and testimony from residents of the apartment building. One of the neighbors, Courtney Brewer, testified that shortly after 2 o'clock in the morning, she heard a loud argument coming from Jason's apartment.
The night of November the 22nd, in the early hours of November the 23rd. Was there an incident that you can recall?
Yes, I was woken up in the middle of the night by a loud scream.
Can you kind of take us, and you can go slowly through the events that woke you up and everything that you heard from that point until you didn't hear it?
There was a scream that startled me out of my sleep. I checked my phone to see the time because I was going to call 911. It was around 2 a.m. There was a voice that was screaming words. The words I couldn't understand fully.
Was it a male voice or female?
A female voice. And then there sounded, assuming that the apartment above mine is laid out the same as mine, there sounded like chasing, a lot of footsteps going across towards the front door.
One person's footsteps or two footsteps?
It sounded like multiple.
You said towards the front door. Was it towards the front door or towards the bedroom?
Towards the front door because I was in the bedroom when I heard it.
You had said that you heard a scream. Can you describe the scream?
Distressed, not quite angry, emphatic.
Reconstructing what most likely happened during the murder depended heavily on the physical evidence left behind at the crime scene, and this was where the case became much more complicated. Jason had not only used a variety of cleaning products to scrub the apartment, but had also gotten rid of a significant amount of physical evidence, including pieces of the broken knife. On top of that, before forensic investigators conducted their official examination, Katrina Pace, who now goes by the last name Bean, had entered the apartment several times and searched it herself. As a result, questions arose during the trial about possible contamination of the crime scene and whether some pieces of evidence may have been accidentally altered or moved before forensic investigators began their work.
Why would the apartment look different after the police went in there than when they were in there? Who changed it?
The defense called its own crime scene expert to analyze the numerous changes that had taken place inside the apartment. He pointed out that the scene had changed significantly between the officer's initial response and the point when it was officially photographed and thoroughly processed by forensic investigators. Furniture had been moved, and some items were missing. The defense challenged the integrity of the physical evidence and even suggested that certain pieces may have been planted after the initial inspection. During his testimony, Travis Pace said he did not remember seeing a knife on the bed when he first entered the apartment with his former wife while searching for their daughter.
And then this past Monday, you were in this room when you saw Katrina Pace testify on that stand, right? Were any of those statements true?
Do we remember it differently?
You heard Katrina testify that she went back into the apartment multiple times after that night, or after that morning?
I heard that.
Were you with her those times?
I was there.
Do you know what she did in the apartment during those times?
I don't know.
Your ex-wife, Katrina Pace, does she have a reputation for being honest? Mr. Pace, in your opinion, does Katrina Pace, is she an honest person?
I don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
While the defense attempted to cast doubt on the crime scene itself, the medical examiner's findings remained unequivocal. They pointed to an intentional, premeditated attack. Dr. Stephen Cogwell, the Hamilton County medical examiner, concluded that based on the placement of the stab wounds, Jasmine had been curled up in the fetal position during the attack, desperately trying to protect herself. From that, the medical examiner reached another important conclusion. The handcuffs found on Jasmine had most likely been placed on her while she was still alive.
If someone were stabbing a person 60 times, we would expect them to try to get away. But what if they can't? What if they can't because their right hand is chained to their right leg, their left leg chained to their right elbow? Makes it difficult to run. Makes it difficult to do anything. Dr. Coswell told you that she was stabbed in the fetal position 60 times. We'd also expect that if she's being attacked on the right side of her body, that she might try to defend herself with both hands. there should be injuries on both hands. Instead, what we have are injuries to the left hand, no significant injuries to the right hand. That's consistent with her being in the fetal position with a hand unable to move on the ground. It's consistent with exactly what we see on the screen right there. Her being handcuffed.
Dr. Stephen Cogwell also determined that Jasmine had no alcohol in her system at the time of her death. That finding completely disproved Jason's claim that the two of them had spent hours drinking wine together. As a result, the alleged provocation Jason relied on in his attempt to have the charge reduced to intentional homicide without premeditation also proved to be false. His story about Tinder notifications supposedly enraging Jasmine was equally untrue. When the state's digital forensic expert analyzed the app's data, it revealed that Jason had not received a single Tinder notification on his phone throughout that entire day. Jason Chen chose not to testify in his own defense. The presentation of evidence lasted 6 days. During closing arguments, his attorneys effectively abandoned their original version of events. Instead, they focused the jury's attention on the fact that Jasmine's wrists did not bear the characteristic marks that handcuffs would normally leave behind. The defense argued that such injuries would have been present if the handcuffs had been placed on her while she was still alive. The defense's crime scene expert also attempted to challenge the conclusion that Jasmine had been handcuffed while alive. He pointed to what appeared to be a bloody handprint on the bedsheet beneath her body. However, during cross-examination, he admitted that he could not say with certainty what the stain actually was. It was never tested in a laboratory. The defense offered no other convincing explanation for the evidence presented by the prosecution, and the handcuffs were far from the only evidence that the murder had been premeditated. The sheer number of stab wounds showed that during the attack, Jason had ample time to recognize what he was doing and stop, but he chose not to. In his closing argument, prosecutor Cody Womp once again carefully reconstructed the sequence of events, placing particular emphasis on Courtney Brewer's testimony. She recalled hearing someone sprint toward the apartment door at exactly 2:11 a.m.
Courtney was 2:11 a.m. The phone location to her mom was 2:18, 7 minutes. She screamed. Things happened. She was able to know she was in enough danger that she needed to send her mother her location. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fast at all, and we know that. 2:11 is 7 minutes from 2:18. It wasn't fast. She knew she was in danger. She tried to get out of the door, and Courtney told you that she heard a door slam. Jasmine knew she was in trouble. She had time to use her phone before he started killing her.
After closing arguments concluded, at approximately 4:15 p.m., the jury began deliberations. Just after 5 p.m., they returned to the courtroom with a verdict. On count 1 of indictment number 3, 15228, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Chen, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The courtroom was filled with emotion after the verdict was announced. For Jasmine's family, it was the moment they had been waiting for so long. Later, one of the jurors said that the fact members of Jasmine's family had entered the crime scene multiple times had little impact on the jury's decision. Yes, everyone who entered that apartment affected the preservation of the crime scene to some extent. But during our deliberations, that ultimately wasn't a deciding factor because we already knew that Jason himself admitted he was the one who killed Jasmine. During the sentencing phase, the jury had one more question to decide whether Jason Chen would ever have the opportunity to seek parole. Through an interpreter, Jason's mother made an emotional plea to the jury. He is a very good son. He is not a bad person. I pray that the judge and the jury will give him a chance so that one day he can come home and start his life over. Attorney Josh Wise also urged the jury to leave his client with at least some hope for redemption. He argued that the justice system is defined not only by how it treats the best among us, but also by how it treats those who have already been convicted.
By allowing Jason the possibility of parole, we affirm our society's belief that the most condemned among us can strive to rebuild their humanity. You're not tasked with forgiving Jason Chen. or even excusing his actions. You are tasked with ensuring justice, a justice tempered with mercy, not because Jason deserves it, but because it's a reflection of our humanity as a whole. I ask that, and we ask, that you give Jason the opportunity, as a 73-year-old man, to seek this redemption. Let him spend the next 5 decades behind bars, reflecting on the choices that he made when he was 22 years old.
The jury needed less than an hour to reach a decision on the sentence. After a brief deliberation, they returned to the courtroom with their final verdict.
With respect to the sentence of the defendant, Jason Chen, on count 1 of presentment 315228, we, the jury, do unanimously find the following statutory aggravating circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt, in that the murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and that it involved torture or serious physical abuse beyond that necessary to produce death, and do unanimously agree that the defendant's sentence shall be life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
During the trial, Jasmine Pace's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Jason Chen's parents. The lawsuit alleged that they had sheltered their son and provided him with money and information during the first days after the murder, when he was already the prime suspect and Jasmine's family was desperately searching for their daughter. The loss of Jasmine and the years of legal proceedings left a deep mark on the Pace family. During his testimony, Travis Pace said that after the tragedy, his relationship with Katrina became extremely strained. When Travis took the stand as a defense witness, many members of the family demonstratively walked out of the courtroom. Despite everything, once the verdict had been delivered, the hardest part of this years-long ordeal was finally behind the family. They had obtained the justice they had fought for over so many years against the man they described as a monster, and for a crime that prosecutors characterized as especially brutal, heinous, and merciless.